everyone, welcome back, and for those of you who are new, hi there, welcome. My name is JoJo and this is JoJo Budgets. Today's video is the first video in a series that I'm calling Velocity Banking. This series, one video is an introduction to velocity banking. I had posted a video about a month ago explaining how our family is going to be using velocity banking to help us pay off debt. And then I did a velocity banking monthly check-in video last week. However, there was a lot of information packed into those two videos. So based on comments, I am breaking this up into more bite-sized pieces in what is being called the Velocity Banking series. Just to start with a little bit of background for those of you who are new, my family and I are new to budgeting. We began budgeting in September of last year, and a lot of what we learned came from YouTube. We began our debt-free journey in February of this year. I'll leave a link to my debt confession video in the description box below if you want to see more about how we started on our journey to where we are now. And then we implemented the velocity banking strategy in August. So just last month, August 6th is actually when I began making my first transfers. So we're very new to this, but again, a lot of our knowledge on this strategy came from YouTube. I do want to also give a huge disclaimer that I am absolutely not an expert in finance. I am just a middle-class person whose family was looking for ways to improve their finances and improve our financial knowledge. So first off, what is velocity banking? So there are several videos on YouTube. I would suggest checking out Think Wealthy with Mike Adams and the Kwak Brothers. Those are the two YouTubers that I felt really explained this strategy well and in lots of different ways that could be maybe more applicable to more people. So I'll leave their channels in the description box below if you want to go check them out just to hear more about the actual strategy. I'm not going to be discussing it too much here, but first, my takeaway from what I had watched was that it's really a strategy that uses two-way simple interest lines of credit to pay down the principal on one-way amortized loans. That's a mouthful, and we're going to be breaking that down today. That's really going to be our foundation moving forward. And in essence, velocity banking, the take-home message I want you guys to have from this video is that it's all about saving money on interest. Interest is where it is at, you guys, with this strategy especially, whether that's paying down debts that you already have or if you're using this for investing, especially in real estate. We're going to start by looking at one-way loans versus two-way lines of credit. First, looking at one-way loans, and it's like it says it's a loan. It's this one lump sum of money that the lender gives to pay off whatever commodity it is that you are wanting. So for a home loan, it would be the mortgage company. A car loan, it would be the car dealership, and then the student loan, it would be to the university in order to pay your tuition for that semester. And then you're set up with a minimum monthly payment by the lender, and you pay down both the interest and principal on that loan until the completion of that loan. And the money, it flows one way from the lender to you, and then the other way from you back to the lender in your minimum monthly payment. My husband and I, we have both a home loan and a student loan that fall into this category. We do also have a car loan. I didn't highlight it in red because there's 0% interest on it right now. And with velocity banking, since it is all about the interest, We're just currently in the process of paying off our car loan, and we'll be done with that at the end of this year, which I am so excited about. Next is two-way lines of credit. And this is where you're assigned a credit limit. And the credit limit comes from how confident the lender is in your ability to repay that debt based on a credit score or your gross annual income. Now, it's not like a loan where that money is taken out. It's guaranteed that you've taken out that money. For instance, you're taking out the loan because if you want to buy a car, you want to buy a house, you're going to university. For this, the minimum monthly payment is only generated based on what your principal balance is. It can be at zero for as long as, depending on the lender. And if you do have a principal balance, if you're paying down the principal, you can then reborrow that money and it can flow back and forth between you and the lender. That's why it's called two-way. Some examples of lines of credit would be a home equity or a personal line of credit, and then there are also credit cards. What we have is a home equity line of credit and credit cards within this category. Moving on to interest. This is really where the meat of this presentation is, you guys. And I think this is really where a lot of people who start a debt-free journey, at least for me, where my eyes were really opened and I kind of had this aha moment of how I had been an ostrich for so long by feeling that I was doing fine because I was making my minimum monthly payments. But there's been so much money and interest that I have lost over the years by just settling for okay. And I have this equation here. I'm kind of a math geek, so I geeked out on this a little bit. I tried to trim it down so I didn't push this on to those of you who are not into numbers. But interest, there are three basic variables for the calculation. Now there are tons of different subcategories, ways you can delve into each variable a lot more. I am absolutely not going to do that in this presentation, and that's honestly just over my head, it's beyond my scope. But first, the first variable, the P, is principal. So the balance on your loan or your line of credit. Next is interest. And for this equation, it's daily interest rate. I think we're used to seeing annual interest rates. So when you're doing the calculations, you have to make sure if you're converting it correctly from annual to daily or annual to monthly. And then N is the number of days between payments. And that's typically 30 days for a billing cycle. So that's what that really means. I highlighted the P and the I because these are the variables that we really have control over. So when you think about different debt repayment methods, a lot of them focus on principal, but with velocity banking, you're focusing on principal and interest at the same time and kind of optimizing those two variables to the best of your advantage or to the most of your advantage. So now what we're going to do is move into looking at different kinds of interest. First with amortized interest. So amortized interest is where the borrower makes scheduled periodic payments that are applied to both the principal and the interest. And the goal of an amortized interest loan or an amortization schedule is to make sure that you are paying interest first. I have three examples listed here. I think the one that most of us are familiar with is a home loan with our amortization schedule. But there are also other loans that have amortization schedules, such as a car loan or a consolidation loan. So really, if your loan has a set term, certain number of years that you have to pay it off, and you're assigned a set minimum monthly payment, then you're going to have an amortization schedule. And that schedule looks like it'll have you paying more money towards interest early on in the term. Then you usually kind of cross this threshold where you've paid down enough principal over those years to where your minimum monthly payment now shifts to where it's covering more principal and less interest. So it's important to know when you are considering a velocity banking strategy, where are you in that timeline? Have you crossed that threshold? Are you still in the high interest phase? So, and then also it's important to note that as you pay principal down with extra payments, more of that periodic or that minimum monthly payment is going to be applied towards principal. So you kind of shift your curve to where you're reaching that threshold sooner. The example I have here is my own loan. It's a 15-year loan that I had refinanced from student loans that were federal loans that had a 6.8% interest rate. And this refinance was 3 years ago to a private lender, again, as I mentioned, for a 15-year term, and I have a set minimum monthly payment of $543.40. I put the initial principal as $60,000. Really, it was more along the lines of $68,000 back then. So the interest I was paying or have been paying the last 3 years is actually more. But using that interest equation, if you take $60,000 times the 4.65% annual interest rate and the 30-day billing cycle, that equals $83,700. Then to convert that to a daily percentage rate, you divide by the 365 days that are in 1 year, and that equals $229.32 paid towards interest for the month. Then subtracting that from my set minimum monthly payment, only $314.08 actually goes towards principal on that loan. Now, this is where my eyes were really opened, and I knew that I had to find some different strategy, because just if I think too hard about all of the interest I paid on this loan, so again, as I said, it's been for 3 years. So if you take $229 times 36, 12 months in a year, 3 years that I've had this loan, $229 a month in interest, that's a big number to nothing. And just to carry this debt around with me, and for me being complacent and making my minimum monthly payments. So let's talk a little bit about student loans. I'm just going to briefly go over this, but I think it's a very important topic. I feel like most Americans can relate to just student loans and the frustration with them, whether you have them or you know someone who has them. But let's talk about subsidized versus unsubsidized, because this is something that I knew of as a college student, but I didn't realize the importance of it, and so I didn't pay too much attention to which loans fit into which category. So subsidized are loans where you begin accruing interest once you graduate. So for federal subsidized loans, if you are going to get a student loan, those would be the best ones to get. You want to try to stay away from unsubsidized, because if interest begins accruing the very month that you take out that loan, and that interest is accrued until you graduate, and then it's tacked on to your principal once you're ready to start repaying it. So what does that look like? Again, with some examples. So here we have a freshman college student coming into their first semester. They take out a $10,000 student loan with a 4% interest rate, and they go to school for 4 years. They call the lender to set up a repayment plan, and the first month after they graduate, how much interest are they paying on this one loan? This one loan they took out their first semester of college. Well, you take the $10,000, that's your principal, times the 4% interest rate, the 30-day billing cycle, that equals $12,000. Convert that to a daily interest rate by dividing it by 365, and they're going to pay $32.88 for interest alone on that one loan. Again, one loan. We all know that you don't take out just one loan for college. Maybe you do if you're really, really lucky. But I wanted to point this out, this bottom bullet point, that calculating your interest or having a basic understanding, if this is a phase that you're in right now, and the repayment methods or options they're giving you, make sure that they at least cover your interest, because otherwise you're going to be a hamster on a wheel just paying less than your interest. So it would just, your loan would just keep growing and growing and growing, and you're just sending more and more money in and getting nowhere. Let's change this to an unsubsidized. So same scenario, same person, except for their loan begins accruing interest that very next month that they take it out. So all 4 years of college, they're accruing that $32.88 of interest. That adds up to $1,578.24 of interest throughout those 4 years. And then as soon as you go to graduate and you look at your balance, it's not $10,000, it's $11,578.24. And that's if it's an unsubsidized, non-compounded interest loan. Compounded interest is usually through private lenders, so beware of them. They are sharks, but you pay interest on the principal plus any unpaid interest. So month 1, you have $32.88 in interest. Month 2, when they go to calculate your new interest, they're calculating a principal of $10,032.88, and that's your new principal. So you're getting interest charged on top of interest. Okay guys, so just wrapping up this video, I wanted to touch on this average daily balance. Because of my husband and I have a home equity line of credit that we are using in our velocity banking strategy, and it has what's called interest applied based on an average daily balance. So the principal, that's what this average daily balance means, how our bank comes to what principal they're going to be calculating interest on. And essentially what the bank does is they total each day's balance for the billing cycle, and they divide it by the total number of days in the billing cycle. And for this, you have the potential to lower the amount of principal that interest is being applied to. So if you watch my velocity banking videos that I posted prior, it might shed a little more light on what I'm doing with some of my bank accounts that are housed within my home equity line of credit. But again, as a part of this series, I'm going to go a lot more into depth with this. So what that looks like, here I have a HELOC that has an APR of 12% just for simplicity. So transitioning that to a monthly percentage rate, you divide by 12 for the 12 months in a year, and that equals 1%. In this scenario, looking at how the bank comes to the average daily balance, let's say you start day 1 of the billing cycle with $500 as a principal balance. On day 16, you're able to make a $300 payment towards your principal. That decreases your balance to $200 on days 16 through 30 of your billing cycle. So when the bank goes to calculate your average daily balance, they'll take the 500 times 15 and the 200 times 15, add those two together, and then divide it by 30, the 30 days in the billing cycle, to get an average daily balance of $350. And then that 1% monthly percentage rate is calculated from there, and you'll be charged $3.50 of interest for that month, as opposed to Other loans that do not follow an average daily balance, you would be charged most likely $5 of interest, because if they usually calculate your principal based on the first day of the billing cycle, or when it's most likely to be its highest, which would have been $500 in this example. Okay, you guys, so that was a lot to digest, but I do want to leave you with some food for thought. First is a suggestion to maybe kind of bring this all home would be to, on a piece of paper, split it into two columns. One side that is one-way amortized interest loans, the other side that is two-way simple interest lines of credit, and write down which loans or lines of credit that you have and put them into each column. And then taking it a step further would be looking at how much interest you paid for each of those in the month of August. And I would suggest writing it down. There's something about seeing that number, even in your own handwriting, that kind of brings it home. That also leads me into our financial psychology, because as I've talked about in this video, I've been just kind of complacent, been an ostrich with my head in the sand. You know, it's kind of just why was that? Or another thing would be, what is your relationship with money? Especially if you are considering this strategy, I feel like this strategy could either bring lots of blessings into your life, or could be a complete curse, because it is a very simple way to be on a fast track to financial ruin, I believe. So that's why we're kind of entering into this with caution, dipping our toes into it with our student loan before we dive into our mortgage or any sort of investments, that sort of thing, because it can kind of give you a false sense of security, especially where your cash flow is or how much money you have for investing, and to not overextend yourself. And I feel like financial psychology, just in the budget community, is highly underrepresented. It plays a huge role in finances, I think we can all agree. And then the next bullet point is having a functioning budget. Y'all, I cannot tell you what a turnaround my family and I have had with our finances, just our overall peace of mind with having a functioning budget, knowing where every dollar is going. And next is, you know, what are your goals? And that goes along the lines of this wealthy mindset. This is something I talked about in my debt confession video, where it's the YouTuber, The Organized Money, did a book review on, I think it's called the 10 distinctions between the wealthy and the middle class. But one of the distinctions was how they plan with their money. And the wealthy plan years in advance, whereas middle class, paycheck to paycheck, just plan month to month. And for us, I'm really trying to shift our mindset. And with this strategy, how we're going to be applying that is in the next year, we're hoping to be out of debt, all except for our mortgage. And then in the next 5 years, our goal would be to be close to, or if not, have our mortgage completely paid off. So those are our 1 to 5 year goals with this strategy. We have others with our finances as well, but I would leave you with that and recommend that you kind of let that information marinate. And next week, I'm going to be showing you guys some real world examples, showing you how we broke it down, our two columns, what they look like, our interest, all that fun stuff. We're going to just dive right in. Thank you all so much for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button. And if you are not subscribed and you are enjoying the contents of this channel, please consider subscribing and checking out some of my other budget videos. Tomorrow is going to be my time blocking video. Otherwise, I hope you all have a beautiful day.